Satisfaction comes first. Not bad, young one. A woman?
Not any woman. A Tachibana. Ginchiyo Tachibana.
Like many of you, I'm sure, I actually started Samurai Warriors with Samurai Warriors 2. When I first rented the game, I picked it up off the shelf of my local Video Easy, and the PAL version cover had 3 characters on it, that being Kitaro Fuma, Yukimura Sanada, and the character we're talking about here, Ginchiyo Tachibana. And her design really stood out to me the most. It was the first time in a Warriors game that I saw a female character being fully armor-clad head to toe with a spiky serrated sword. She looked like the most serious and ready for battle female character in the series that I had seen thus far. Most of the female character designs in Dynasty Warriors 3 through 5 were super cool and serious and ready to fight, don't get me wrong. But the female characters in those games usually were kind of lightweight. They wore what looked like lightweight cloth armor and usually used some kind of unconventional weapon. So to see a more kind of standard and typically strong and masculine kind of female character design here was cool and refreshing. Her design hasn't really changed a whole lot ever since Samurai Warriors 2. It's always been an iteration on her same armor and sword and helmet, or circlet, or whatever you want to call it. Along with her lightning-infused blade and lightning powers, she's a very visually appealing character. I find myself playing her a lot in Samurai Warriors or Warriors Orochi, even though there's some shortcomings in terms of her gameplay mechanics, which we'll get to later. But I'm going to rank her design first because it was her on the cover all those years ago at the Video Easy that first got me into the Samurai Warriors series, and she was one of the first characters I played in that game because of that. Overall, she's a very cool character design and very distinct from the female characters. That being said, I think it's just a little short of S tier. I'm not going to give her an S tier design. She's a solid A in terms of her character design, but I can't quite put my finger on why, but I can't bring myself to pull her all the way into the S tier ranking in terms of her character design, so she gets an A in that field. Anyway, next, let's talk about her gameplay mechanic. So in pretty much every game, Ginchiyo always feels a bit weak out of the gate. When you first start playing her, her reach isn't very far and her moves aren't particularly flashy. They're all pretty quick, like it's decent to start off, but she feels a bit weak, a little underpowered at first. That being said, she does get better as she progresses. First, let's talk about her in Samurai Warriors 2. So her short range, her lack of reach with her melee attacks is a pretty consistent problem even as you level her up in Samurai Warriors 2. You're meant to cover for it by using one of your 2 special moves, that being the one that adds reach to your blade, but it feels kind of bad having to use one of your special moves in the middle of combat to give a decent amount of reach to your melee combos. Like, in the time that I spent powering up my blade, I could have just gotten another combo off, you know? So I often find myself not even really using it. Her second special move looks really cool. It calls down a bunch of lightning strikes around her, but it's not that great. It can be blocked, for one, and where the lightning strike seems to be totally random. When it hits, it is a stun, but it's a stun that causes them to fall to the ground, so you have a limited amount of time to capitalize on it. But it's pretty good if you're dealing with a huge group of enemies and don't just want to run straight into them. You can turn it on and run around them and hope for lightning to strike them to give you an opening. Other than that, though, I gotta be honest, for a character who made their debut in Samurai Warriors 2, feels a little bit underpowered. A lot of her moves are either pretty standard or a little below average or pretty clunky. She has a couple really strong moves for clearing big groups of enemies, that being her 4-square triangle, her 5-square triangle, and this move, which causes her to charge forward with a lightning rush aura all around her, which is really cool. Her Muso in Samurai Warriors 2 is absolutely terrible. For one, it doesn't really combo with most of your kit. It doesn't combo with your extended normal strings or any of your charge attacks, because there's a little bit of a wind-up time, and it has a really small range. That being said, it does juggle enemies repeatedly. It doesn't knock them away when you hit, but it is really good at killing officers when you hit them with it. But there's not a lot of ability to combo into it. Oftentimes you're just hitting them with the Musho attack entirely on its own. Ginchiyo in Samurai Warriors 2 is decent, but she doesn't have anything crazy. There's nothing in her kit that's OP. She does have a decent-ish opener in her special square move, but overall, in terms of the most powerful and fun to play characters in Samurai Warriors 2, Ginchiyo is not even close to the top. She's not bad, don't get me wrong, she's just kinda decent. To be honest, she's maybe a little bit below average in terms of her gameplay mechanics in Samurai Warriors 2. A lot of these gameplay mechanic shortcomings are made up for in Samurai Warriors 4. She has hyper attacks, of course, and in fact now she is a hyper attack focused character, which is a change from her being a normal focused character in Samurai Warriors 2. Hyper attacks make literally every single character in Samurai Warriors 4 god tier at clearing big groups of trash enemies, so she doesn't have that weakness anymore, but she's actually worse in some other ways. For starters, she only has one special attack now, and she kept the Energize Your Sword special move instead of the Call Down Lightning Strike. This is a problem because basically the one thing you really need to keep in mind when picking characters in Warriors games for the highest difficulty levels and the most tough stages is having a strong opener, a good way to break up the enemy formation so that you're not running into a huge group of officers and troops and they all attack you and instantly kill you. You want something to soften them up, stun them, damage them from a distance that makes your life a lot easier. And now that her second special move is gone, she no longer really has an opener. She has to open up by going face forward into the enemy, which on Samurai Warriors 4, to be honest, is completely fine in most circumstances and on most difficulties, but if you're like me and you like to play hard mode straight away when you're level 1 and leveling up, and then switch over to Nightmare mode once you're like level 25 to 30 in Samurai Warriors 4. You know, doing that to apply pressure to yourself and to keep the game consistently at least kinda challenging, then Ginchiyo feels a little subpar when playing this way. You kinda have to make up for her weakness by using the active skills and epiphany skills. So overall, in terms of her gameplay and power level, I'm going to give her a C. She's not bad, she's far from the worst. She's alright, but she does feel a little below average and underpowered. You can definitely make it work, but it just doesn't feel like she has anything that is like super OP that you can spam and abuse to get through tough situations you shouldn't be able to get through. Lastly, her story and characterization. Ever since her debut in Samurai Warriors 2, she's pretty much always been a minor side character. Hell, even her intro cutscene, the first thing you see when you play her story mode, is actually a shared cutscene. I had already seen it from playing Hideyoshi Toyotomi's story mode. And then throughout her story mode, the only other unique cutscene she gets in that game is her ending cutscene. I think this is a bit disappointing considering this is her debut appearance. She should get a little bit extra to her story mode. What little characterization and story she does get is interesting and fun and kinda traditionally satisfying. Basically, the game starts out with her battling Yoshihiro Shimazu. That's a tough one. Her story starts out with her doing battle with Yoshihiro Shimazu. Her clan and their clan have a long-standing feud. You get the sense of a valiant effort on the Tachibana's side, but clearly they're outmatched. Ginchiyo has inherited a clan in decline, on the back foot, losing the war to the Shimazu, and she has to side with the Toyotomi, a much bigger outside faction, in order to settle it. However, upon winning the battle, rather than exacting her vengeance and killing the Shimazu, she gets made to side alongside them in the larger Toyotomi army. And this leads to a pretty standard, pretty by-the-numbers vengeance into redemption story. Kinda like what you see with Ling Tong and Gan Ning in Dynasty Warriors 5. Basically, over the course of time, through battling side by side, Ginchiyo eventually overcomes her lust for vengeance and gains a sort of respect for the Shimazu. She does do battle with him one last time in her unique final stage, which is really cool. I really like it when characters get a unique stage just to them. I mean, it's on a reused map, but whatever, it's a new scenario. Anyway, she defeats him, but decides to spare his life, and they make up and share some camaraderie, and it's all, you know, it's standard kind of stuff, but there's a cool little arc for her and Yoshihiro to have together. I gotta say though, I'm a little annoyed when I play through Samurai Warriors 2 as Ginchiyo, because pretty much every male character you come across makes some kind of sexist remark. Like, I'm in the middle of slicing up dudes by the dozen, and I'm having to deal with Yoshihiro calling me a cute little thing, and Sakon Shima making some condescending, negging-like remarks. Like, come on dude, I'm just trying to be badass and kill a bunch of guys here. In Samurai Warriors 3, the direction they decided to take with Ginchiyo Tachibana's storyline didn't appeal to me as much. Basically, it went from the relationship that she had with Yoshihiro being the focus to the focus being on the relationship between her and her husband. I forget his name, but the other Tachibana dude. Pretty much most of those games' cutscenes were kind of melodramatic, sad cutscenes of them expressing their love for each other occasionally while fighting on the battlefield. It's all kind of groan and eye-roll inducing for me, but also unintentionally hilarious because the husband's voice acting in that game is just unbelievably wooden.
Are you afraid of death?
Not I. I will be proud to die for the Tachibana.
Use your head.
For Samurai Warriors 4, unfortunately Ginchiyo and her husband are nearly non-existent in the story of Samurai Warriors 4. In all of the story campaigns, I think they only show up like once or twice, and I can only remember or find one single cutscene featuring Ginchiyo. There's a few events with her in Chronicle mode, but these events are delivered in the most flat and boring way, and I never really cared for Chronicle mode. Overall, when it comes to the story of Ginchiyo Tachibana and her characterization, she was already a minor side character in her debut game, and unfortunately she's gotten more and more relegated to the sidelines as time has gone on. I'm gonna end up giving her, honestly, a pretty generous rating, all things considered, mostly because I just like her tough-as-nails chick personality. So overall, I'm gonna rank her a solid C in terms of characterization and story. Overall, I really want to rate Ginchiyo Tachibana much higher in all the categories. I have a sort of personal attachment to her. I'll always play her in Samurai and Warriors Orochi games, even though she's not the strongest and her story is always given a very minor role. But she's got a kind of draw that overcomes the fact that Koei has clearly no idea what to do with this character or really any interest in putting the focus on her. So, overall, she scores a C on gameplay, a C on story, and I'm going to give her an A+ on design. And this is overall going to leave her with a ranking of B+. If you ask me just straight up off the top of my head, not really thinking about it, breaking it down, I would probably rate Ginchiyo a little higher, maybe an A-, but taking a thorough look at her throughout the series, she's never really gotten the respect and love that she deserves. I feel like this character could potentially be a big fan favorite if they put a little bit more effort into giving her story agency. But I guess there's just a lot of characters in the cast and they don't have time for everyone. So they just decide, hey, she's a cool armored chick with a lightning sword. We don't really need to do much else. That being said, from what we've seen so far from Samurai Warriors 5, she will not be back. Maybe at a later date as like a DLC character or something. Maybe they'll make a Samurai Warriors 5 Part 2, you know, post-time skip or something. Who really knows? But for the time being, I'm really gonna miss seeing her in the roster, especially because they haven't replaced her yet with another armor-clad, sword-wielding female character. And I would really like to see her design in the new art style. I think she could be a really cool looking character. But anyway, rest in peace, Ginchiyo. Hope to see you back, and hopefully better than ever. So, okay, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. This is Game Ranker. If you enjoyed the video, please click the thumbs up. And if you want to stay tuned and see each and every character in this massive Samurai Warriors roster get ranked, then hit the subscribe button. I'll be putting out one of these every week or so until I've done the entire card.